Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to our Tuesday night edition of the program. Our telephone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. If you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, I encourage you to do that. And there's a lot we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the developments of the CEO assassin, the guy who killed the CEO of United Healthcare. We're going to have some discussion about the economy. Joe Biden is now touting his economy as the best one ever. You know, stuff he usually does. And, of course, we're going to talk about the 480, I don't know, it was mortars or what it was. I haven't even gotten the full story yet, but Israel has struck Syria 480 times since yesterday. So we're going to get to the bottom of that as well. But I want to start off with something a little different, because there was a lot of conversation on Capitol Hill today about arguably the most important issue facing America, which is immigration, right? I think immigration and the economy, in my opinion, were the two biggest issues of this election. And people don't like that. At least the Trump critics don't like it. The other day I posted a clip of President Trump in the interview that he did with Kristen Welker. And he covered so many topics there. It was a really good interview. Gave a lot of good clips for us to, reflect on. And one of the things he talked about, excuse me, was the immigration. And how, you have to deport the whole family together, kind of group repatriation, family unity type of thing. And somebody, a critic of mine on Twitter or whatever, says, oh, man, this is like roaches voting or bugs voting for Raid. And as if you're Hispanic, you can't vote for Trump, making the comparison that, Trump is the Raid and I am the bug. And I couldn't help but take exception to something like that, because it's such a limited view, right? I was born a citizen. My parents were born citizens, right? No, not all Hispanics are created equal, I guess, in that sense, right? A lot of them, we might have some immigrant qualities, right? Because my parents were born in Puerto Rico and things were different there. But by and large, we didn't have the same plight and struggle. Like, nobody in my family said, oh my gosh, when we were wading across the Rio Grande River. It's never happened. And nobody in my family has ever been deported, right? So I don't know what that's like. That's not something we've ever had to deal with. But to the non-suspecting person, usually a liberal that's white, when they try to criticize me, this is the case they make. Like, you're selling out your own people. Trump doesn't like you. He'll deport you in a second. Don't you realize he hates you? And my point here is, to not sound like I'm romanticizing whiteness like this woman from MSNBC said, because it's not what I'm doing. The point I'm making here is that people are different and people have different interests. I think whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Certain people have an affinity for upholding the law, right? And I think Hispanics tend to be, for the most part, very law-abiding people. They are hardworking people, family-oriented people, faith-based people, right? Going to church, having a big family. These are all, kind of staples for Hispanics, not the least of which is following the law, having a safe community, providing that safe community for your family. So for someone to say that this is like bugs, voting for raid. Well, it has, I guess some immediate shock value. And it's like, oh, wow, that's, very provocative. When you think about it, it's really stupid. The entire thing is stupid. People that came here from another country and had to wait online and provide a sponsor and go through the paperwork process and do it the right way and wait their turn in line obviously should feel slighted to the people that are coming in from Venezuela or wherever else they're coming from, cutting the line, coming here and breaking the rules. Makes all the sense in the world. They'll probably be angrier than the person that was born in the United States, right? Because they don't share that same immigrant plight. Yet these guys are cutting the line. So anyway, I bring that up because I want to set the stage for Senator Josh Hawley, who's at this hearing today. And man, does he go off. Listen to this.
You don't actually care about working people because you're absolutely hell-bent on this ideological agenda of opening our border. You want to give everybody who's here a path to citizenship. You want blanket amnesty. You talk about mass deportations. That's your word, not Trump's. You want mass amnesty, right? It's right here in your testimony.
We want a path to citizenship for people who pass a background check, who pay a fine.
That's amnesty, who you just said there's millions of people, 13 million people. Right, 13 million people you want to dump into the labor force.
They are already
who will drive
in the labor force,
illegally.
Senator.
They're here,
yes.
taking jobs
so
from American citizens and selling. Perfect.
This.
So here's your plan. So just if you're wondering, America, here's the Democrats' plan. Take the 13 million plus illegals who are here, taking jobs from Americans, taking wages down, taking health care benefits, and bring them here legally so that they can continue to drive down wages, flood the labor force, and suppress
Senator
all of the
Hawley,
above.
They can't flood the labor force if they're already part of the labor force, which is
they
the
are flooding the labor
today.
force now. That's what's happening now. Why do
the
you think
majority
wages
have been here for
flatlined?
over 15 years. Many millions have been
And
here
what has
since
happened
the
to
Reagan
working class
administration.
wages in that time, Mr. Reifman-Melnick?
Working class
Have they gone
wages
up?
are currently going up. Yes,
Oh, really?
they
They've
have
gone up over the last 15 years?
Over the
They're
last
up?
15 years, I will have to consult the economists on that matter.
Yeah, they're down, way down. What world do you live in?
I'm with him. Now, listen, you can use the trickery of wordplay and say, the majority have been here for more than 15 years. Perhaps that may be true. We're not talking about the majority. We're talking about the 20 million people that have come into this country since Biden took office. They may not be the majority, but they are the problem, right? We didn't have this gang, Tren de Aragua, taking over places in Chicago and Colorado and other places. That wasn't happening before. It's happening now. These vicious rapes of these young girls, whether it's gang initiation or just savage people, this was not happening at the level it's happening now. There's always, I'm not going to say if you toughen up your immigration rules, you're not going to have any rapes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we shouldn't add to the rapes that already occur by letting in people that are known criminals from other countries. And we've done that, right? They're not criminals because they're Hispanic or because they're coming across the border. No, they're criminals because we have a report saying that they are criminals. And we've allowed, 413,000 criminals into the country out of that large number. That's insanity. It doesn't matter if they're not the majority or not. This is a big number of people, a huge number of people, and it's a very problematic group of people. And it's got to stop. Anyway, we're going to continue that immigration conversation a little bit further down the road. I also want to talk about these, like I mentioned before, these. Let me see if I just word it right here, because there was really these rocket attacks. I think 480 rockets. Just a lot going on here. So I want to do that with our friend General Bob Dees. He's scheduled to join us in a little bit. So let me give you the phone number, because right after we talk with the general, we're going to be talking with you all, the American people, in the last episode, maybe even the last segment of each hour. We'll do some open phones across America. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Keep it locked.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Israel tonight unleashing a wave of devastating airstrikes across Syria, destroying its military bases and naval fleet. Officials say they want to prevent the fallen Assad regime's chemical weapons from falling into the hands of the Syrian rebels. Today, we visited Assad's abandoned palace, the vast marbled estate ransacked and burned.
This is what was a ballroom, clearly ravaged by fire now. You can see all the chandeliers smashed and burned.
New video showing the world Assad's life of luxury, a garage filled with rare Ferraris, Lamborghinis and Maseratis. While Assad stole his country's wealth, his people suffered extraordinary pain to keep him in power.
That is a report from ABC News. David Longman is the reporter there. And CNN also reporting that the Assad regime, after fleeing, is now Syria is being hit 480 times by Israelis trying to prevent any future damage. I want to get a sense on what's going on in that part of the world as this continues to develop faster than I can keep up with Major General Bob Dees, retired from the United States Army after 31 years. He served in a number of positions, including commander of the U.S.-Israeli Combined Task Force for Missile Defense, and he now runs the National Center for Healthy Veterans in Virginia. General, welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you, Rich. Good to be with you again.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. And tell us, I guess you heard this report that just played about Israel striking Syria and Assad, cutting and running. Give us the scoop. What's going on in that part of the world?
Yeah, well, it's a dangerous neighborhood, as you know.
For sure.
I think the world writ large, except for a couple of nations, has really been greeted the demise of Assad with jubilation, particularly the Syrians that had to live under the brutal dictator. Obviously, Iran and Russia are disadvantaged by this. Syria was one more surrogate for Russia and Iran in the region. And so their reactions we can talk about that in a bit. But it's not without risk. I said dangerous neighborhood because we got chemical weapons. We got the resurgence potentially of ISIS. We've got the impact on Israel, Middle East balance of power. And a lot of people don't know that Syria over the last decade or so had become a real narco state. So their impact just of importing drugs or exporting drugs into other parts of the region was significant as well. So by any measure, it's good that this government has fallen. Now, that said, you never know what's going to replace it, and we're seeing some of that right now as it takes shape. You're right, it's a very dangerous, fast-moving situation, and so predictions are, a bit precarious at this point.
And, General, again, CNN reporting that there has been 480 strikes across Syria over the last 2 days, hitting most of Syria's strategic weapons stockpiles, while their defense minister in Israel says that the Israeli Navy has destroyed the Syrian fleet relatively overnight. And I see other reports that the Russians are now parking part of their fleet off the coast of Syria. What's going on there geopolitically? Is this posturing for war, or is this retreat?
Well, I think I would say, obviously the Assad government has retreated. The Russians are working force protection. They've got 2 naval bases in Syria. And I don't know that it's a retreat, but certainly they want to get them out of port because they're concerned, no doubt, that their naval bases would be disrupted, maybe by the Israelis, maybe by the U.S., but more likely by the civil unrest and all the rebel groups that are roaming pretty freely in Syria now. So, and I would also point out, Rich, that, Israel, 480 attacks and so forth, well, the United States has done a lot of this themselves because they likewise are concerned about ISIS and getting out of the box, getting some strategic weapons in their hands, and so the United States has been every bit as active, just maybe not quite as in the public eye as Israel has on a lot of these attacks.
Okay, so the United States and Israel both trying to stave off any, I guess, quagmire from erupting here, and it's probably a good idea. There's a lot of talk about Turkey being behind a lot of the rebel groups. What can you tell us about the genesis of that?
Yeah, I think Turkey's a bit schizophrenic, to be honest, Rich. I don't want to insult my Turkish friends, but the Turkish government has supported the rebel groups, as you mentioned, but they've also strongly supported the Assad regime. And they were a bit duplicitous in that, in other words, supporting both sides in various ways to their advantage. I think Turkey certainly wants stability in the region, and they also have a significant refugee problem in Turkey. I forget the exact number. It's like 2 million Syrian refugees, in Turkey itself, and so they're trying to protect their own space. It's like their border, their southern border, not in the U.S., but their southern border in Turkey.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think? Looking at this, obviously, like you said, this news that Assad has retreated, he's gone, he's been ousted, he's taken refuge with Putin in Russia. And this is being met by the world with jubilation. And I agree. I see the same thing going on. What's next? And we only have about a minute or so before the break, but we can continue after the break. But I'm curious to see what happens next, because we saw, the toppling of Saddam Hussein, and then next thing you know, it was an absolute disaster for the next, 2 decades.
Right. I don't see quite the same disaster because I think the area is more contained. I think the United States and Israel have a much better handle on the forces in Syria. I think ISIS before was a real threat, and so I know the incoming President Trump and certainly understands ISIS, won't let them resurge, even though he said he doesn't want U.S. involvement in a Syrian civil war. He certainly wants to keep ISIS down, and will use the necessary power to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's wise to do so. Well, let me just remind everybody who we're on with. Folks, we're on with Major General Bob Dees. He retired from the United States Army after 31 years in the Army, holding a variety of command and staff positions, including commander of the U.S.-Israeli Combined Task Force for Missile Defense. Now he runs the National Center for Healthy Veterans in Virginia, and we're going to continue our conversation with General Bob Dees straight ahead. Our phone number, if you want to join us right after that conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Keep it locked right here. We're going to continue our discussion on what's going on with Syria, Assad fleeing Syria, the latest with Hezbollah and Hamas, Russia and Ukraine, and a couple of headlines as well. I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our discussion with Major General Bob Dees. He retired from the U.S. Army, and he served as the commander of the U.S.-Israeli Combined Task Force for Missile Defense. And, General, I want to ask you a couple of questions. One is, I think this, for some who aren't generals like you, this came as a surprise to a lot of people that the not the entire regime, but their military also seems to have kind of crumbled. They don't really have the infrastructure they did. Perhaps they didn't have it before, but it was somewhat surprising to me. And I'm wondering, how did the army in Syria kind of collapse as quickly as it did?
Yeah, well, it's a good point. When you look at the overwhelming aspect of the rebel forces, the HTS and others that have come against the Army, I would say they were brittle in that when you operate in a dictatorship like that, sometimes the fall is more dramatic. Like when the Berlin Wall fell, it wasn't a slow demise. It all of a sudden it just boom. And that's the way it is in some of these autocratic countries where they have such rigid rules, and when the military it really is not as competent as they could or should be, and they just get overwhelmed. And people see it in the intelligence world. They see these signals happening, and they predict it several days before it happened. People were saying, "Hey, it's going down." And yet the person on the street, all of a sudden, they just hear about it and they say, "How did that happen so rapidly?" First, it didn't happen as rapidly as it seems, and then secondly, those institutions are brittle, and when placed under severe pressure, as they were, then they just crumble rapidly.
And General, I guess along those lines, we talked a little bit about the United States government, the Air Force. Also, alongside the Israelis bombing in Syria to prevent ISIS from taking any footholds. But there's also been a lot of talk about Al-Qaeda being involved. What can you tell us about that?
Right. Well, I don't know that I can distinguish. Al-Qaeda and ISIS, some of those players are one and the same at times.
Yeah.
And so, they sort of morphed back and forth. What I can say is that that you've got the factions within Islam itself, the Iran and its affiliates in Syria and so forth are Shia, and then these rebel groups coming in are Sunni, and so you have that even hatred between those factions that goes beyond any geopolitical things. Yeah.
Now, with respect to the, the Army collapsing as it did, would you say this was something that you, from your perspective, expected? Was the writing on the wall, or is this something that just tends to happen quickly when these types of situations, erupt?
Yeah, I would say it was predictable. When you started seeing the unraveling of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Israel starts taking them down, and the unraveling of Hamas, the position of Syria, the strength of Syria, not having Hezbollah on their western flank and so forth, made it more difficult for them. So Syria was starting to lose props as Israel has been prosecuting its campaign in the north with Hezbollah, in the south with Hamas, and indirectly against Iran. So Syria was in a predicament because some of the folks that had been using them as a transit point, using them as a weapons stockpile, basically, and many other things, all of that started to go away.
And I want to switch gears a little bit and get your take on something, I guess, that's more national security focused, and that's a report from the Washington Post. And in this report, it's being reported that the White House is considering a preemptive pardon for General Milley. And as in his role as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I guess my confusion there is, A, I didn't know he was accused of anything, other than his, horrible position on DEI in the military. But B, don't government people, you being a retired general yourself, have a qualified immunity while you're operating within the scope of your command? I know Congress people have it. The president certainly has it. Why wouldn't the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have it?
Well, I think he would have it unless there is some violation that they perceive. It's almost like an admission of guilt if President Biden grants this immunity to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. It's like, okay, what did he do? Exactly. And I would say it's this preemptive pardon is paranoia at its worst, and I would say Trump derangement syndrome at its worst. I think President Trump has indicated his revenge is success. His revenge is not against people such as this. And frankly, he's got an important agenda. He doesn't have time to start scouting after Milley and Schiff and all those people. I mean, there may be other people in the political process that they have offended so badly that they come after him. Now, the political operators would be different than the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, but the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, in all effect, is a political person. When you get into that position, you have to be, and some do it well, some don't do it as well. And General Milley, I think, has a mixed record there. He was in an unenviable position, but I agree that his emphasis on wokeness, his emphasis on critical race theory, things like that was dangerous to the military, and that played out in various ways. And we see that the American people have rejected that thoroughly.
Yeah, they have. Now, speaking of the military and obviously speaking of veterans, this is something that you focus on now in your role as, one of the heads of the National Center for Healthy Veterans in Virginia. Tell us about healthyveterans.org.
Sure. Well, thanks, Rich. Healthyveterans.org is our website for the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Our bumper sticker is to return healthy veterans to America. You know, I maintain that our veterans are an untapped national treasure with the commitment, the courage, the competence, the character that they bring. And once they take that uniform off, none of those things change. And our veterans are an untapped national treasure. And I think America, frankly, needs our veterans now more than ever before as coaches, educators, business men and women, tradespeople, and societal role models. So that's what we do. We help people get healthy. We're a 9-month program. We're somewhat unique across the nation. There's nobody quite like us. And we keep them there for 9 months. They do a true life reset. We put them back out on the track and do good things for America. We have 30 horses. We have 339 acres, 300 chickens that give us 80 dozen eggs a week. It's an active farm ranch construction operation. They live in tiny homes to defeat isolation, one of the primary causes of veteran suicide. We have trauma recovery, life skills programs as part of our curriculum. They have dignified work to provide purpose and self-esteem, which is very important for guys that have lost their purpose as they left the military. So we're seeing great results. We're seeing people that come to us suicidal that walk away from that and become successful. We see people that tried to outrun their trauma with their job, and they're burned out, and we help them get back onto track with life balance and emotional regulation. So we have licensed professional counselors. We do equine therapy, a lot of different ways to help these veterans physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and relationally.
That's fantastic. So let's just say you've got somebody that's coming back from serving overseas, and their time is up. They want to, I guess, reintegrate back into the everyday life, but they need some help. Maybe there's been some trauma. They were involved in something. They go to you and they spend 9 months with you, and they're working on an active farm as part of getting back into civilian life. Is that how it works?
That's exactly right. They become part of a community with other veterans that are doing the same thing, and they learn skills. They learn coping mechanisms. They learn how to deal with their emotions and some of the mental and physical injuries that they've had. And then we put them back out and do good things. The last 3 months of their time with us, they're in an internship. And so by that time, we know what they want to do professionally, what they're good at, their experiences, and we put them into an internship, and often that parlays into a job with that internship or with somebody in a like industry. That's
outstanding. General, that is fantastic. Folks, if you want to learn more about what's going on with Healthy Veterans, check it out. The National Center for Healthy Veterans. They're based out of Virginia, and it's healthyveterans.org, healthyveterans.org. I highly recommend checking it out. It sounds like an amazing program. And General Bob Dees, I want to thank you for kind of bringing us up to speed, keeping us in the loop on what's going on. I really appreciate it. As always, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, sir. Godspeed.
Well, thank you, Rich. You too. I appreciate your show and all that you do.
Amen to that, brother. Likewise, and I hope to talk to you soon. If I don't, have a great Christmas.
Yep, you too. Take care.
All right. Folks, we're coming right back. That was General Bob Dees, and I'm coming right back with a couple of more thoughts. And your calls are coming up, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And in a little bit, some conversation on the economy. Then we're going to talk about this killer, Luigi Mangione, alleged killer. So keep it locked right here. Plus, the National Police Association has endorsed Kash Patel for FBI director. We're going to talk about that as well after the bottom of the next hour. Keep it locked right here.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation, and I had played a clip for you guys, I don't know, a couple of months ago when the whole Sean Puff Daddy P. Diddy Combs scandal had broken out, and it was a clip of Sean Diddy Combs on Entertainment Tonight back in 1999. And in the clip, he references Jay-Z. Well, there's some new developments on that, but I want to play the clip for you just to remind you. Listen to this.
Your parties are the hottest ticket around.
They won't even give me a permit for the parties, man. They don't want me to throw the parties no more. But we ain't gonna stop. We gonna keep on having fun, bringing people together from all walks of life. You're gonna hear about my party. They're gonna be shutting them down. They're gonna probably be arresting me, doing all types of crazy things just because we want to have a good time. You know, whenever you bring up a different element into people's environment, things that broaden people's horizon, people get intimidated. There's a lot of people out there that feel intimidated by it. It ain't nothing but break it down racial barriers, break it down generation barriers. People from all walks of life. Ron Perlman talking to Jay-Z, Jay-Z talking to, you know what I'm saying? It just goes on and on. You know, it's just like people from all walks of life connecting and getting together.
There you go. Jay-Z, Ron Perlman, people getting together. Well, Jay-Z has been pulled into the Sean Combs scandal weeks after having ugly backdoor legal maneuvers. Listen to this report from MSN. This is the public naming now of Jay-Z as the mystery celebrity who was accused in an anonymous civil lawsuit of raping a 13-year-old girl with Sean Diddy Combs. Now, this comes weeks after he had this behind-the-scenes legal battle with Diddy's lawyer, Jay-Z's lawyer, and the Texas lawyer that's representing the woman that was 13 at the time. Now, ever since Diddy, Sean Combs, was charged by federal prosecutors in sex trafficking, there's been a number of civil lawsuits that have been filed from people claiming they were victimized by him. So there's a lot of talk about who else is involved. He brags about the different people at his really infamous parties. So this is where we are. Now, the Jay-Z case is offering a window into how this whole thing works, especially the big money part of it behind it, because there could be a lot more that comes from this, right? Back in October, Jay-Z received a demand letter from a Texas attorney named Tony Busby, who was making allegations of misconduct and suggesting that Jay-Z should meet with them. Some legal commentators have said that letters are a very common way to begin the settlement process, as opposed to going to some sort of civil trial. It went on. The letter included a picture of a ticking clock, and Jay-Z decided to come out swinging. The music mogul was quick to respond with his own lawsuit, and on Sunday, his name was finally made public as the celebrity in the lawsuit. And he responded by blasting Busby on social media as a deplorable human and as an ambulance chaser in a cheap lawsuit. Jay-Z has denied any wrongdoing, calling the claims idiotic. And listen, when they claimed that Mike Tyson had raped somebody back in the days, I didn't believe it then, and I don't believe it today. It just seemed very opportunistic at the time. You know, some people will go after people with money just to make a name for themselves. And that's just lamentably how life works sometimes. But Attorney Busby told the New York Times on Monday that he won't be deterred or intimidated by Jay-Z's comments, and he wouldn't commit to whether other celebrities might be named. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, said yesterday in a letter sent to a judge in the case, asking to either dismiss the allegations against Jay-Z or disclose the accuser's identity. Listen, I'm for that too. If you're going to accuse me of something, you better come out. Shoot, if you're going to criticize me on Twitter, I hope that you don't have an anonymous Twitter account. I put my name on everything, and I stand by what I say. And some people want to take cheap shots, and then, you know, you look at their Twitter profile, and it's like one of those little gray silhouettes where nobody, and their name is like, you know, 24, 37, 87, 123 at Twitter, you know. And it's just, it's funny to me. People, you know, back in the days in talk radio, we used to call them telephone tough guys. And now they're more like Twitter tough guys. But the keyboard warriors, I think they're called. The bottom line here is, I don't know what the bottom line here is for this guy, right? For Jay-Z and his culpability in the matter. But there was this big indictment against Combs, and that's how that started, with a number of lawsuits against him, and then eventually the feds got involved, and voila. Now he's put in jail for these freak-off parties. So, I don't know. We're gonna keep our finger on the pulse here and see how this whole thing develops. Jay-Z now being implicated in a rape of a 13-year-old girl along with Sean Combs. Folks, I'm coming right back. Your calls, my thoughts, and everything else. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, a little Christmas music never hurt nobody. And you know what? I don't know if I have time for this. I'm going to check with my boss over here, Count Delacula. May not be enough time. How long is that Thanksgiving comedy clip? Too long. All right. Well, I'll tease it for you. I'll play it for you at the end of the 11 hour or maybe in the midnight hour. But I'll tell you this. This got to me a little bit late. It is a skit by a comedian who does impressions of a number of people, from Trump to RFK Jr. to Kamala to Joe Biden, Vivek Ramaswamy, and they're all at Trump's Thanksgiving dinner, and it is hysterical. I thought it was so funny, and I'm going to play it for you so you can laugh a little bit too. We'll get into that a little bit later, but coming up now, right after this quick break, we have some very good conversation coming up. We're going to talk with Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith from the National Police Association. But before we do that, we're talking with Vance Ginn. He used to be an economist in the White House, and he's going to break down the latest news for us. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. It's another hour here with me, Rich Valdez. Happy to be with you. And the phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And there's plenty to discuss tonight. Of course, we've been talking about a number of things. We've talked about how Syria's military has collapsed along with the Assad regime in their retreat to Russia. Russia now posturing on the coast of Syria in order to protect their military assets in Syria, and the United States Air Force bombing areas that it thinks may be susceptible to ISIS, while the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, have bombed 480 targets since Monday. And they're doing the same, trying to destroy chemical weapons, compounds, and whatnot, preventing ISIS and or al-Qaeda rebel groups from accessing these facilities as they try to take over Syria. So quite a bit going on. And I want to also remind you that tomorrow I'm going to have a little bit of a conversation on our government's pansexual, pan-romantic awareness day. Yep, that's a thing. And I wanted to talk about it yesterday. I didn't get to it, but we'll get to it tomorrow. We're going to talk about that. You ever wonder what happened with some of the people on January 6th, the people that were there and got locked up and sent to that horrible gulag-like prison? Well, we're going to chat with somebody who's in one of those gulags. They're going to be making one of those prison phone calls to us, and we're going to get the scoop right from them inside a federal holding facility. So keep it locked right here tomorrow for that one. But tonight I want to get into a number of things, not the least of which is President Joe Biden, Joe El Baboso Biden, as I like to call him. And Joe Biden was at the Brookings Institute today saying it's his profound hope that President Trump will preserve his economic success. Listen to this.
Next month, my administration will end and a new administration will begin. Most economists agree the new administration is going to inherit a fairly strong economy, at least at the moment. An economy going through fundamental transformation that's laid out a stronger foundation and a sustainable, broad-based, highly productive growth. That is my profound hope that the new administration will preserve and build on this progress.
Sounds more like a profound joke to me. What progress is he talking about that he wants Trump to preserve? If anything, I'm hoping that we can do a flashback, hit the rewind button, go back to Trump's economic success during his administration. But I just thought that was very laughable. But he didn't stop there. He went on to continue saying that his economy is the best and the strongest. It's as if he's channeling his inner Trump. Check this out.
I believe the only way for a president to lead America was to lead all of America. And I believe the economy I'm leaving at the moment, and others could do better than I did. I'm not saying it was perfect, but it ends up at this moment the best economy, strongest economy in the world. And for all Americans, doing better. So we got a lot to do, and I'm leaving the presidency, but I'm not going away. Bad news for you all. Because I think we got to bring this country back together.
All right, that again, Joe Biden at the Brookings Institute today. And I want to get some reaction to this speech and his position on the economy, because clearly the economy isn't as great as he's making it sound. And if it is, it's because we've seen the market surge a little bit since Trump's win on November 5th. And people reacting to the news of tariffs as well, which can sometimes raise the cost of goods, but oftentimes can level the playing field. And we're going to talk about that as well in the next segment. But right now, I want to get reaction to what Biden was saying from our guest, Vance Ginn. Now, you know Vance Ginn. He served as the Associate Director for Economic Policy at the White House Office of Management and Budget. He was an economist there in the White House. He's also the host of Let the People Prosper podcast, which you should definitely check out, and a senior fellow with American Tax Reform. Vance Ginn, welcome back, brother.
Hey, Rich, it's a pleasure with you this evening.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And let's dig in. Do you agree with your president, Joe Biden, that he should be. We should be hopeful that Trump will preserve his economic success.
I don't agree with him. I appreciate that his sentiment, but if you look at what's going on across the country, most Americans don't feel the same way, which is why they rejected the Biden-Harris policy of big government, green energy agenda schemes, and other things that, prop up one business over another and try to bail everyone out in the process. This sort of big government, big spending, big debt policy just didn't work. And unfortunately, we have more people out of the labor force now. Labor force participation rate has not backed up to where it was before the pandemic. That's one reason why the unemployment rate's staying low. We've also experienced massive inflation, the highest in 50 years. And so all these things don't bode well for how they're going to write the Biden economy into the history books.
I agree with everything you're saying, but I find this whole thing kind of crazy. And I get it. These are politicians, right? You worked in the White House. You've worked with politicians before. They blow smoke, right? It's all about making them and their record and their position look good. We use hyperbole, and I get it. It's part of its kind of, the craft. But this is kind of crazy, right? You just mentioned this highest inflation in 40 years while it's come down. And this is one I guess I want you to answer, take a crack at. Because somebody asked me this the other day, and they said, inflation went as high as 10 or 14% or whatever it was. And now, they say it's down around 3 or whatever it is for whatever the latest number is. But I don't know anybody who's paying anything less in the grocery store. I haven't seen car prices drop. I haven't seen home prices drop. They were certainly inflated. The only thing I've seen a drop in is maybe gasoline prices. What's going on, Vance Ginn?
Well, it's a great point. Basically, we had, at least the consumer price index, the way that it's measured, was up 9% year over year back in 2022. And then it's come down since then to about 3%, so you're right. It's moderated, as some would say, but it still means that prices are higher than in the general level of prices. Inflation, right, is higher than it was a year ago. So you're correct that prices are not going down. It's just that they're not going up as fast. And most people feel like they already weren't able to catch up before. So if you're already falling behind, your wages weren't keeping up with inflation over time, you've got more things you're spending money on for a variety of reasons. Now you really feel far behind because those rates are compounding. That inflation is compounding the pain that you're feeling, and that's exactly why I think people went to the polls in November and said, you know what, we want a different direction, and we want more of a pro-growth policy direction from the Trump administration.
Now, there's a couple of things that, and I agree, but I think there's two follow-ups I have here. One is the strength of the dollar, and if I feel like the dollar is on its way to being stronger and stronger, and I hope it is, because with a stronger dollar, we should have lower inflation. Is that true?
That's true in the sense that we'll buy, it's cheaper for us to buy foreign goods and services. And usually if the dollar is higher, means that the Federal Reserve isn't printing as much money, right? And so that also contributes to lower inflation, a lower cost of living across the economy. So it's a combination of things. But in general, yes, you're right.
Right. So if we have more purchasing power with the dollar, I think this is a relatively good thing. But with this deflation, right, because there's been a lot of talk about this, including Elon Musk saying, things are going to get worse before they get better. Should this deflation begin, we're going to see everything drop, including home values, which a lot of people have been, kind of banking on. They love this new $1 million house they live in that was not $1 million house a couple of years ago.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and I think that's right, that we still have what I consider to be a housing market bubble. I think we have a stock market bubble. So a lot of the asset prices have looked really good for several years, and that's what has kind of driven the Biden economy, if you will, to allow for people to, to refinance their home, get out some of that money, spend it wherever they can, also live off of government programs along the way. And some of the stock market folks, right, they're selling off their stocks and they're buying stuff. But that can only last so long. Savings rates went up historic highs during the COVID pandemic and right thereafter with all this, handouts that were given. But those savings rates now are down to about 2% at historic lows. So that tells me is that, yes, we did have a period that looked like a quote-unquote boom, but it was an artificial boom. This is exactly what Keynesian economics, modern monetary theory, these sort of ideas are, is to say, let's drop as much demand in the economy as we can and think that that's just going to clear out of the economy and we're going to all be better off in the process. But that's a fairy tale because we end up paying for it one way or the other. We've seen that now through higher interest rates, higher inflation, and I think asset price bubbles that are going to pop. And when that happens, we're going to be in a more world of hurt because people won't have enough in their home to get that money out, and also not enough in savings to live off of for a while. So it gets you that big feeling during the night, but the next morning you've got a hangover, and that's really what we're seeing from these Bidenomics.
Well, Vance Ginn, with all of that being said, do you agree with the notion that I guess what comes up has to come down, and we're headed for a correction or even a recession in the coming months, which will leave us in a better place when it's done?
It's a good question, and I think that we could end up there, especially had Harris won, because of the fiscal implications, the net interest on the debt that we're spending more than $1 trillion, and all the excessive government spending programs that she was willing to put in place. Fortunately, that didn't happen because the Federal Reserve would have monetized a lot of that debt. And now with Trump coming in, I think that there is a way to even soften the recession or possibly not have the recession as the markets correct, kind of that creative destruction that tends to happen when you get this laid into a stage of artificial demand. But I think what Trump could do is a lot of supply-side economics, where you think about tax cuts extending, making permanent the Trump tax cuts, cutting government spending, I believe is pro-growth. I think that should be talked about more out there, that cutting spending is pro-growth policy because it leads more money in the private sector and allows more competition in the private sector. And you add to that deregulation and the Federal Reserve hopefully cutting its balance sheet, I think we've got a lot of ways to get out of this in a period of allowing for more growth and economic opportunity for people. So yes, there will be some bumps along the way as markets tend to correct, but I think if we can get government out of the way as much as possible, we'll be in a much better situation.
Vance Ginn makes a lot of sense. And let me ask you, I guess, two more questions. The first one being, Trump has talked about a temporary reprieve on credit card interest. I know there's a lot of people that are using credit to finance their day-to-day lives and not just to earn points or pay it back at the end of the month, but as a actual source of income, which it's not, and it's costing them a lot of money. A, do you think that's going to happen? And B, what type of effect do you think it'll have?
I don't see how that could happen with credit card debt and private insurance companies or private credit card companies issuing those credit cards. I mean, you're talking about billions of dollars that they're receiving for those who don't pay monthly, and so they're tagging up some more of that credit card, the interest rate on that, and that compounds over time. And of course, it's costly, but I think it's all about personal responsibility. I don't think that's a good policy approach because those individuals took on that credit card debt, so therefore they should have to pay for it. Just like if you take on student loan debt, we just talked about, Biden coming in, quote unquote, forgiving student loan debt, and everybody pushing back against that idea. Why would we do the same thing for those with credit cards? That just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. But if it did happen, I think it would be it would hurt those who need credit the most, because those are the first ones that the credit card companies are going to cut their and not give them credit at all. And so there will be repercussions. Nothing is free, and the trade-offs here I think will be really costly if we ended up going down that route.
All right, Vance Ginn, I'm going to save my next question for the next segment. Folks, we're coming right back with our guest, Vance Ginn. He is the president of Ginn Economic Consulting. He's got a podcast called Let the People Prosper, and he's a senior fellow with Americans for Tax Reform. You know him best from his days as the Associate Director for Economic Policy in the White House Office of Management and Budget. That's OMB. And he's really up to speed on what's going on. We're going to continue our discussion with him straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state. We're subsidizing Mexico, and we're subsidizing Canada, and we're subsidizing many countries all over the world. And all I want to do is I want to have a level, fast, but fair playing field.
That, of course, is President Trump, President-elect Trump, former President Trump, soon-to-be President Trump, talking about tariffs. And again, I'm not as big a fan of tariffs as he is. I think that we can see this drive up the cost of goods in some situations. But when it comes to China and others, I think this is the best strategy, because you do have to kind of price them out of the market so that we can bring things back stateside. And I think that's fair. But that's my purview on it. I want to get reaction to that clip from Vance Ginn. He's our guest, president of Ginn Economic Consulting, former associate director for economic policy in the White House, Office of Management and Budget. Vance Ginn, what say you?
Well, Rich, I mean, I definitely get the sentiment, and I get the interest in this. My concern is that it just hasn't worked in the past, and I'm concerned that if we go down this route with higher tariffs, that it'll just lead to another trade war where you go back and forth with different tariffs, and it hurts Americans more in the process.
Hurting them how?
Well,
by the cost of goods increasing?
Yeah, cost of goods increasing, but it also, half of the imports that we get go in the manufacturing process. So it actually hurts the production process. If you raise the price each level, then that will get to a final good that the price is higher, or the businesses can cut costs by cutting workers, right? And there's different ways of going through that. And so I don't like that sort of approach to it. What I would rather see, whether it's Mexico, Canada, or even China, is for us to have freer trade agreements with more of our allies, and then that way we could have more pressure on places like China to restructure their own trade practices. If we just go to battle with China, there's no incentive for them to change their trade practices, and so we're going to keep having this same situation over time. I mean, even Trump in 2020, we had the deal, well, I was there actually, with China saying that they were going to buy $200 billion more of our products and all this other stuff. Well, then COVID happened, of course, but even after COVID was over, they didn't adhere to any of that. And so I'm skeptical that we can get there through tariffs.
Man, Vance Ginn, we need another hour just on tariffs because you and I are on the same page there. I think we can use them, but they've got to be strategic. It's like a haymaker in a fight. Every shot can't be the haymaker. Vance Ginn, folks, check him out at vanceginn.com. That's with 2 N's. Vance, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night.
Rich Valdez coming back.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
That's completely out of touch. And so the intelligence of the American people is lived experience.
Luigi Mangione is escorted into the Blair County Courthouse in an orange jumpsuit with his arms and legs shackled. The 26-year-old appeared for his extradition hearing Tuesday afternoon, which he is challenging. Mangione was spotted in McDonald's the day before, eating what appears to be a hash brown when police approached him. With him was a laptop, masks, and $10,000 cash. During the brief hearing Tuesday, Mangione tried to interrupt his defense attorney, who was attempting to convince the judge to release him on bail. Don't say a word, defense attorney Thomas Dickey told his client. As the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has put out an arrest warrant for Mangione for murder and other charges, the Blair County charges are still active. We also just spoke with his defense attorney. Thomas Dickey is not a public defender. He is a private attorney. He wouldn't share how he was retained, but he did explain why they're challenging extradition.
I'm a lawyer. That's why we're fighting extradition. We have constitutional rights, and that's what we're doing. You heard me in there, And I will say one thing. You can't rush to judgment in this case or any case, because any one of you all, if you're charged with a crime or any of your family members or loved ones, you don't want anybody rushing to those judgments. So if you believe in America and that presumption of innocence, then you cannot rush to judgment.
That's a report from Michelle Ross of Fox 5 News in New York. And the clip there at the end is Thomas Dickey, the attorney for Luigi Mangione. We're going to hear from him a little bit later as he clarifies why he said don't say a word. But I want to get some reaction to all of this because this case was moving very slowly. I'm used to watching police dramas and The First 48, the documentary series. And it was like 3 or 4 days had gone by and we hadn't heard anything. And then all of a sudden, boom, now we got the guy in custody. So it's, it's kind of like real time, true TV, true crime, court TV type of thing. And I want to bring in one of our favorite top cops, Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith, the spokesperson for the National Police Association. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about Kash Patel. I want to talk about everything else that we could talk about under the sun. There's never enough time with Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith. Welcome back, Sarge.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And that was quite an outburst, wasn't it, by Mr. Mangione? His defense attorney's going to have his hands full.
This guy, from what I saw today, I don't know if he's pretending to be unhinged, but he seems pretty unhinged. When they brought him in his civilian clothes, he was rowdy and, almost looked like he was acting almost. And then once he had the orange jumpsuit on, it got even worse.
Yeah, I'm going to guess again. I'm the street cop. I'm not an FBI profiler or anything, but I would guess he's some sort of narcissistic, sociopathic kind of guy who is going to turn this case into his own little movie. He's going to get kind of like Brian Colfatch in out west in Idaho, was it?
That murder case.
Who murdered the college students. Guys like Mangione really thrive on this kind of attention. We have to remember that, he's a guy who's used to a lot of privilege, and he's not used to being handcuffed and shackled and dragged around. He's used to being the smartest guy in the room, too. He's a very bright young man.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he had a hard time keeping his mouth shut while his defense attorney was arguing against extradition.
Right. Now, let's talk about that, being the street cop and having a career in law enforcement. Why would he argue against extradition? Is it better for him in Pennsylvania versus New York?
Well, I think it's probably safer for him in Pennsylvania. And, basically what his defense attorney said is, hey, this is kind of what we do. And all it does is it just delays him returning back to New York. That causes a little bit of issues in the investigation because that forces the detectives, if they want to talk to him, to go back and forth, things like that. In New York, you have to get something called a governor's warrant to bring someone, to extradite them back to New York. And understand, too, there's going to be charges in New York, there's going to be probably federal charges, and, of course, he's facing charges in Altoona, Pennsylvania. All it does is it mucks up the situation for law enforcement, but he will ultimately be returned to New York City.
Well, I can't wait. I can't wait for that one, honestly. I think it's always fun when things like that happen in the city. And this guy seems like, I agree with you, he's used to privilege, and it seems like he's having a case of how dare you, like he's Greta Thunberg, where they put handcuffs on him and he's like, how dare you? But I don't think he's going to like it in New York. They're not going to be as accommodating.
No, they're absolutely not. And this is going to be a case that everyone's going to be watching. And understand, Boyd, some of these NYPD detectives, this might be the first night that they're actually getting any kind of sleep. They have been running and gunning this case for 7 days now, and in fact, a whole contingent of them yesterday went from New York to Altoona to try and talk to this guy. He now has a private attorney. This is no public defense attorney that he's got, and I think that there will be, based on his parents' income and their reaction, I think there's going to be quite a defense team brought in to help him. But this is going to be, I think ultimately justice will prevail.
Now, Sarge, you mentioned the contingent of NYPD officers that went over to try to interview him and whatnot. And this is, I guess, the question I have for you is, in all of your experience in being a cop, when you get this guy in the box, right, when you have him in the interrogation room, what angle would you take with him?
I think that I would consider the fact that he is very bright and considers himself very bright. I would have watched any video of him, read all of his social media, all of that. And I would have treated him like he was the smartest guy in the room and get him to tell me exactly how smart he was and go ahead and agree with him that, corporate America's bad and insurance companies are bad, but you're the only one who really had the guts to do something about it. Tell me about that, because it seems like you really had it all figured out. This is the kind of killer, this is the kind of bad guy that you want to pump up that ego, and he won't be able to shut up. We just saw that in that piece of audio that you just played.
Yeah.
He's going to be a guy that's going to run his mouth, and that's why his defense attorneys are going to have a hard time keeping him quiet.
Folks, we're on with Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith. She is the national spokesperson for the National Police Association, and I want to continue a little bit of what approach she would take and kind of get the play-by-play from the police perspective, because I think whenever you turn on the news and radio and anything else, you're just hearing more about the same. I want to take a different approach and get that view on it, because I don't know, I love those procedural dramas and documentaries. Those are always so fun to watch. So we're going to do one live here with our guest, Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith from the National Police Association, and we're going to continue with that straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith, spokesperson for the National Police Association. And Sarge, earlier you mentioned that the police NYPD went to go, try and get some information out of this guy, Luigi Mangione, and he wasn't speaking, and his attorney told him, don't say a word. And then the press actually asked his reporter, the reporters asked the lawyer to clarify why and what he was saying. Listen to this.
You just said a moment ago that that's what lawyers do when telling their clients to be quiet. What did you mean by that?
Well, no, I mean, because I'm going to do all the talking. It's you have the right to remain silent, and I believe in that right.
Don't say a word is what he said. So now, Sergeant Smith, you were saying that when you, figuratively speaking, right, hypothetically, you get this guy in the box and you're starting to sweat him a little bit, and you're asking questions, stroking his ego, telling us more about it, but his attorney's advising him not to talk. What do you think happens with a guy like this?
Well, if his attorney tells him not to talk and he decides to listen to his attorney, lots of cases have been lost because, the police continue. When a guy lawyers up and says, that's it, I want to talk to my attorney. But a lot of times they don't. One of the things, look, the way that we solve crime a lot of times is because people aren't very smart in the way they handle it. Mangione has a really good attorney who says, you know what, I'm going to do all the talking. That's very good advice when you're a bad guy. But criminals love to talk. They like to tell you about their crime. They like to tell you how dumb you are and how smart they are. And if you can play on that, you can get a lot of criminals to tell you what they've done wrong. And that's what skilled detectives do, but they've got to do it legally. When they lawyer up and say, I want to talk to my lawyer, you got to back off.
Yeah, I hear that. And ultimately, I mean, I'm guessing from my purview, again, I don't have any facts. I don't know anybody in the case. I have no inside track. But it seems like they've gotten this guy through good old-fashioned police work, and it seems to me like they've got the right guy, right? Because of the way he's acting. He's not saying it wasn't me. He's not saying, you got the wrong guy. He's, just complaining about things. Do you think this is going to be a pretty open and shut case?
I think it will be. They have so much DNA, fiber, photographs, video, everything. And now they have the firearm. That's huge. Remember, there's rounds on the ground. There's rounds in the body of the victim.
Right.
They have a lot of excellent evidence. The work now is taking all of that evidence. Remember, they still, as of today, were dragging that lake in Central Park, getting more evidence. They've got the backpack, all of that. You got to take all that evidence, develop a timeline, and then put it all on the bad guy. And that's what the NYPD is doing now. And, this is such a high-profile case. They're going to devote as much time as needed to really develop that timeline and put it all on him, because it doesn't sound like he's going to confess. It sounds like he's going to fight it, and they need to prove it's him.
Interesting. Folks, keep it locked right here. We're going to come back with our guest, Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith of the National Police Association, and they've recently endorsed Kash Patel to serve as the next FBI director, and he has my endorsement as well. We're going to find out more about what led to their endorsement of that and their thoughts on Kash Patel and the FBI overall when we return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
One of the things that struck me, Kristen, yes, the tone was different, but it doesn't mean it's a difference in his priorities or his policies. Because even when you listen to what he had to say about retribution will be through success. That's not saying he's not going to go after his political enemies. What I heard was him trying to give some space for himself for plausible deniability, because he picked these people, and Carol touched on this. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are election deniers. Kash Patel is somebody who has empathized with QAnon. They know what the direction is. He does not need to direct them. This is why he picked them. They have passed the loyalty test. So what struck me is more tone, not a difference in what he intends to do or what he wants the people he's nominating to do.
That is Jen Psaki, silent P, of course. And she's there trashing Kash Patel, saying he's no good for whatever she said there. And I think she's wrong, and I think she knows it, and that's why her defense of her position is kind of weak. But of course, Trump is coming after his political enemies by way of success. He's going to do well, and he's going to ask them, "You tired of winning yet?" I mean, he's made that abundantly clear. See, the part I think a lot of people forget is that Trump was already in office. He's already hired an attorney general. He's already fired a director of the FBI. He's had all of this power before, and we know exactly what he would do with it, not what they would say, right? He never did any of the things that they're saying. Anyway, I want to focus in here on Kash Patel. Kash Patel is a former federal prosecutor. He's a former federal public defender. He was the National Security Advisor and Chief Investigator for the House Intelligence Committee and Chief of Staff at the Pentagon. I think he's got a number of qualifications there that would allow him to do this job really, really well. But I want to hear why the National Police Association decided to put their seal of approval on Kash Patel's nomination. And to do that, we come back to our guest, Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith, spokesperson for the National Police Association. Sarge, why did you guys go with Kash Patel?
You know, this is something we don't do very often. We never endorse candidates. We're a charity. We're not a police union. So we do not endorse candidates. But we decided to get involved and endorse Kash Patel as director of the FBI because we feel so strongly about not just his qualifications, but his ability to take the FBI and turn them in the right direction. The FBI is the premier law enforcement organization in this country, but they have been hopelessly politicized over the last number of years. And we believe because of his experience, his ethics, his education, and his commitment that Kash Patel is the guy to right the ship. He doesn't have an enemies list. He wrote a book. They keep calling him a Trump loyalist. He's an American loyalist. He's got a wonderful story, and he has been on both sides of the law as a defense attorney, as a prosecutor, and then, of course, a long history of prosecuting drug crimes, of being involved in intelligence operations. He's the guy, and so we felt like the world needed to know that the National Police Association supports him.
Yeah, and and I'm glad you did. Because he's not a political candidate, right? So it's not that kind of endorsement, but it's putting your support behind a law enforcement official. And, you know, he's kind of like America's chief of police, if you will. And I think he'd be a great choice for the reasons you mentioned and so many more. I think he has the mind for reform that so many people are looking for. I think Americans are looking for reform in many federal agencies. And you need someone that has that vision, that can, knows how to trim the fat and understands what goes into what. So I want to congratulate your organization, the National Police Association, for their endorsement of Kash Patel, because I think it's important for America. Now, Sarge, let everybody know how they can learn more about the work that you're doing and how to find you.
So we ask that everybody goes to our website, nationalpolice.org, nationalpolice.org. Hit that donate button if you can help us out, because we are a charity. We educate supporters of law enforcement and the cops that they love and support.
Outstanding. That's a mission I can get behind. I endorse them as they endorse Kash Patel. Sarge, I want to thank you for being here. Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith, God bless you, ma'am.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Talk to you soon. And folks, we come back with your calls and more. It's Open Phones Across America.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program. We're live, we're national. It is Tuesday night. Happy to be here with you. And our phone number, if you want to join us on Open Phones Across America, it's the third hour of the show. It's a time-honored tradition here. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. Of course, the Legacy line, the Jimbo line, 866-505-4626 or 866-50-JIMBO will continue to be in service to all of Jimbo's loyal listeners. And I like to mention that every now and again. So much to discuss. And we've talked about a lot. We had a great conversation with General Bob Dees about everything that went on in Aleppo and Damascus and Syria and where it's going. If you missed that, make sure you check it out at richvaldez.com. It's available probably in about an hour and a half. You can get all of those interviews, the ones we did earlier. There's also the conversation we had with Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith and Vance Ginn, who took a position similar to mine, where he's not so fanatical about tariffs. Some people love tariffs. I don't love tariffs. I think they serve a purpose. As I said before, I think it's kind of like a haymaker. You know, you can't, every shot, every punch, every strike in your fight can't be the haymaker. You can use it every now and again, but you risk, knocking yourself out, right? Missing and falling over, and it's just too much energy exerted. Anyway, that was a good conversation, and if you missed it, make sure you check it out, richvaldez.com, and that's Valdez with an S. And we have a lot to talk about, and you guys have a lot to talk about. And the last thing we talked about was this guy Mangione, Luigi Mangione, and his lawyer. His lawyer has advised him of many things, and not the least of which was to be quiet. But his lawyer had some advice for him today outside of the courtroom, and we have a clip of that. Listen to this.
Nick, you just said a moment ago that that's what lawyers do when telling their clients to be quiet. What did you mean by that?
That one. Let's stop that one and play the other one, the one we haven't played already.
Any comment on the outpouring of support there's been for him online?
No, I mean, people are entitled to their opinion, and like I said, if you're an American, you believe in the American criminal justice system, you have to presume to be innocent, and none of us would want anything other than that if that were us in those shoes, and so I'm glad he has some support.
That's Thomas Dickey. He's an attorney for Luigi Mangione, again, speaking with reporters outside of the court and talking about the public support for his client. And, of course, there's been some crazy comments from people out there. Taylor Lorenz, who I think just lost her job because of the statement she made, but she said that she had joy. She felt a sense of joy when she learned that the CEO of United Healthcare was murdered, assassinated. And this is clearly a problem, right? Irrespective of your position, whether you say, I hate these corporate companies, these big conglomerates, or I don't care for them, or whatever it is. It's never okay to go shoot people you disagree with. Bottom line, we don't do that as a civil society, as human beings. We don't do it. But yet, online, they're kind of applauding it. They're saying that, it's a shame this didn't happen, or a shame that didn't happen. We don't do that. We should never celebrate the death of another human being, unless you're celebrating the death of somebody who brought death and disparaged others. Then it's great to celebrate. But this guy wasn't doing that. I mean, they might have thought that, and I guess that's the argument they're going to make, is that it's a difference of opinion. That every time they denied a cancer claim or every time they did this and that they were, bringing this pain to someone. But the reality is this guy, Thompson, I doubt very much that most of these cases that get denied even came across his desk, because it's a dollars and cents type of thing. I'm sure there's a case-by-case basis, and they probably have an ethicist on staff to figure out the more complex ones. But ultimately, they're in the business of making money. And I get that. They never said, hey, look, we're a nonprofit. We're here to, help people. No, they're like, hey, we're a for-profit company. We sell insurance, and we're here to make cash. And I get that. And I don't begrudge them that. I don't begrudge anybody their ability to make a living and to make money. I don't know, call me a capitalist pig. What do you want? People go into business to make money. That doesn't mean you have to treat people poorly. It doesn't mean you have to be a tyrant. You can still be fair. You can still have humanity. You can still have ethics and morals and values. But you just don't have to do that stuff. And it's a shame to see that somebody went and killed this guy, right? Some people take the opinion of, well, if he did a better job and paid out more of those claims, maybe he'd still be alive. No, that's not fair. That's not fair. Imagine somebody, God forbid, shoots a radio host. They say, well, if he wasn't such a jerk and wasn't so short with the callers on the radio and had better opinions on his politics, and maybe he'd still be alive. No, that's wrong. You're not allowed to kill people because you disagree with them. That's just a fact. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's go to Frank, our buddy Frank, Evergreen, Montana, listening on KOFI. Frank, what say you?
Hey, Rich. The irony of the plastic gun, or the 3D polymer plastic, which is forever chemicals.
Right. The ghost gun.
Yeah, and here he is back in his hometown. And through high school, he did a science fair project of robotics using a lot of plastic, etc. But here it is in a city that they got a Lego factory. Some of the jokes this summer was they're going to rebuild the Baltimore Bridge there, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, with Legos. But thing is, he's a swimmer. If there's any justice to this all, give him hard time cleaning up the river there, and put him down in a deep mess. It's better than being in a protective custody cell somewhere.
Like back in the days, right? Breaking rocks and manual labor. Yeah, I'm with you. He needs to join the chain gang. Listen, I don't know if they'll do that or not. I do know that I think they still do that. They still have like some corrections facilities that are on farms, and you get to participate in farm life a little bit as opposed to prison life. But Frank, yeah, I get you. I get what you're saying. This is we want to discourage this stuff, not encourage it. And this celebration from people, because they also don't like certain outcomes on insurance, which many of us have had those situations. We can't just start applauding the assassination of corporate executives because we don't like the way they run their company. That's a no-go. Frank in Evergreen, Montana, KOFI. Thank you, sir. And we've got calls from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, from Tampa, Florida, Boise, Idaho, and all over. More are coming in right now as we speak. So keep it locked right here. We're going to get through those, and we're going to come to your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
Okay, so they've arrested our hot CEO assassin. Turns out his name's Luigi. He's 26 years old. He's an Ivy League grad. Did his undergrad and master's at Penn in computer science. That's my type. He's a little young for me, but baby, what is you doing getting caught eating at McDonald's? And curse you, McDonald's employee, for turning him in. But I get it. They upped the reward to $60,000. Maybe you needed that money. I never understood those crazy women that wrote inmates in jail, but I could see myself doing that.
That's just one of many reactions that's online. This is a woman on TikTok clearly upset that someone turned in a murderer, a cold-blooded murderer, right? I guess there's no warm-blooded ones out there. It's kind of like when they say mass deportations. Should we do sparse deportations? think we should do a whole bunch of them. We have a whole bunch of illegal immigrants. Why wouldn't we have mass deportations? Anyway, yes, these murderers are cold, stone cold killers. And what are you going to do, right? You're going to sit here and pretend and say, oh, you've done society a service. Thank you for killing the CEO of United Healthcare. I mean, who does that? Who talks like that? There is something seriously wrong with people. And I've got to tell you, they all seem to be on the left side of the political spectrum. Now, maybe I'll take it back. I've met a few of my QAnon friends that are a little off the deep end. And they're willing to kill everybody, too. And these people are not conservatives, right? They don't believe in Christianity. They don't believe in the Constitution. They just believe in what they feel, which is typically what the leftists do, right? The leftists believe in what they feel. And if they like what they feel, if it feels good, they do it. That's their philosophy. It's not one that's rooted in a biblical worldview or a constitutional worldview or anything like that. So anyway, that's, again, just one of many that are cursing the McDonald's employee for turning in the suspect in the shooting of the CEO of United Healthcare. But I personally think we shouldn't do this, right? People should not be killing people just because they disagree. Let's go to Galesburg, Illinois, WGIL. Check in with Tim on line 1. Tim, go for it. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, good evening, Rich. And just listening to your show on the way home like I do every night. And I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian. I believe in the Lord, and I don't believe killing is right by any means, and I wouldn't advocate for it at all. The thing I wanted to say was, had this not been the United Healthcare CEO, if this had been just Joe Schmo walking down the street in New York and got shot in the back a couple times and died, we would have never heard anything about this. This was a crime that was treated as what we call a high publicity crime. So everything, all the effort was out to find the guy. They wouldn't have done that for the average New York citizen, and I think we'd all know that. If it hadn't been for the CEO, they wouldn't have. And the second point is being a conservative, such as yourself, we don't advocate this, but we want government out of the way, and we want our country back. And when you put people in these positions, the law is the law, and our religion is our religion. But they're going to start fighting back against these large corporations that have taken advantage of the American public a lot. Insurance companies love to play the game when they're winning, Rich. But the minute they have a lot of claims or anything like that, they want out. And they'll leave people high and dry. Ask the people down south about their insurance on their homes and stuff. Ask the people out in California in the wildfire areas, in Maui and stuff. They will. They'll leave you high and dry. They love to play the game as long as they're winning. But the minute they have to start playing out claims, oh, no, we're going to leave you high and dry. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Tim. I think that a conversation should be had on the ethics of these companies. I think that should be separate from should we kill people we don't like for whatever reason. But with respect to that, I don't think I'm old enough to remember a time when insurance companies were fair and looked out for the consumer. In my entire existence, I've done nothing but get ripped off by insurance companies, and it just gets worse and worse each year. This last year probably being the worst of all of them. I've never seen my insurance increase as much as I have. Not just my healthcare insurance, but my auto insurance. I mean, just astronomical increases that I didn't see on anything else. One could only hope that their investment portfolio has that type of growth. But it really is a problem, and I think ultimately we have conversations about these things. We can sue for these things. You can have a boycott, but you can't go and murder the guy. Not to mention the guy that's right behind him, whoever is vice president of his company and becomes the next CEO or whoever they recruit to come in. It's not like they're going to turn around and go, you know what, we're going to make less money than the other guys. We're going to cut half our workforce, and we're going to pay out every claim for half of our customers. It doesn't work that way. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. I don't know. I agree with you. We got to get the government out of the way because that's always everybody's answer. We have to go to a single payer system, some sort of government subsidized health care. And, I don't prefer that. I don't think that we should listen. If they're offering it, I'm taking it, but I don't think that that's the answer. I think that's just one more expense that ultimately we, the people, will not be able to afford long term, if that makes any sense. Tim in Galesburg, Illinois, thanks for tuning in every single night. I appreciate you, brother. Godspeed to you. And let me see. I got time for another. Let me see where we go. Let's go to Paul. Paul's in Boise, Idaho, KBFI. Go for it, Paul. All right, Paul's not there, so we continue. Where do I want to go? I want to go to Jerome. Oh, man. Yeah, I got time. Minute and a half. Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Go right ahead.
Maya Angelou once said that when someone reveals to you who they
Oh, man, we lost Jerome. Well, anyway, what he was saying was Maya Angelou once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And, yeah, I think that's a very wise thing to do. I think he was making a comment about I don't even know what he was commenting about. So hopefully he'll call back. We'll try and get him back on. Anyway, we're going to get to the rest of your calls in a moment. We've got calls from California. I see we got a call from more. We got San Francisco, California, Ventura, California, Atlanta, Georgia, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, our good friends in Canada, Tampa, Florida. Where's my buddy Gil at? Where's my buddy Pat at? We got the OG callers taking the night off tonight. That's all right. You're allowed to take a night off, but I always enjoy speaking with all of our callers. It really is an amazing time. And what gets me is few people have the fun that I do at work, and I consider it a real blessing to be able to come to work. And, I've got critics like Jerome in South Carolina. I've got, people that are supportive in other parts of the world and the country. And it's great. You get different takes, different strokes for different folks becomes reality on open phones across America. So I love that. And again, let me give the phone number for that. If you want to join us, we still have one or two lines open. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's the phone number. Looks like we got Jerome back on the line. I'll get to you right after this pause. The music's kicking in momentarily. There it is. And the rest of our open phones across America conversation continues when we return. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's the halfway mark. We continue with your calls. No open lines right now. Not a single open line. So if you got in, you're hang in there. Hold on to your spot. We're going to try and fly through these. We got 30 minutes to get to all of your opinions. Charleston, South Carolina, Tampa, Florida, Montreal, Canada, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, San Francisco, California, Ventura, California, Atlanta, Georgia, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Ottumwa, Iowa. Man, I love it. Where do we go? I had left off with Jerome. But before I go to you, Jerome, I want to share something with you. Every now and again, I'm always doing research for the show, and sometimes people send me funny things, and somebody sent me something on social media that was really funny. And it was a comedian named Ami Kozak that was doing impressions of various political figures as if they were doing Thanksgiving dinner with Trump. So I guess this happened a couple of weeks ago at Thanksgiving, and I missed it. And I can't believe I missed it, and it's a little bit late, but, man, it's still funny. He impersonates R.F. Kennedy and Who else? Kamala Harris, Joel Baboso Biden, and Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. It's really funny. Listen to this.
Welcome, everybody. It's a great day. We're going to have a wonderful time with all these people, great people. We got Vivek.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. President. Happy to trim the fat off the turkey to make it more efficient.
Elon Musk is here.
Yeah. So I want to send the turkeys into space on a rocket. Yeah, we can do that.
Oh, boy. Alex.
We will start the revolution. Riding in on a horse in the dark night to the sky as we...
He's a crazy guy.
Overturn the global empire that turns the deep state into a shallow grave.
We're going to take a look at that. Believe me, we're going to take a look at that. RFK Jr. Bobby, how we doing?
I just want to make sure that we subject these turkeys to a blind study, non-placebo trial. Because what's happening is the tryptophan in the turkeys are causing people to prematurely fall asleep.
Speaking of Sleepy Joe.
Oh, we should 500,000, million.
This guy can fall asleep so fast.
$1 million fentanyl. That's what he did. Look at what he done.
It's unbelievable.
Look at what he done.
Sometimes politics is not so nice. But today it's very nice. Let her in. Kamala.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, she's already drunk. That's going to be a problem.
I am just so grateful to be here, and I brought the juice.
Okay, well, you might...
Come on, man. What, you think you're...
That is terrific. Again, that's Ami Kozak, a comedian. He played all of those people. And it's a funny little video. I don't know if you found it as funny as I did. I'm sitting here laughing. It's like the third time I've heard it. I'm still laughing. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on everything we're talking about, from insurance rates to socialized medicine to Luigi Mangione, the healthcare CEO killer, and so much more that we've been discussing tonight. Let's go back to Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Welcome back.
Hey, I can't wait to see those Republican confirmation hearings. And Joni Ernst, let's see how much spine she's got when she's starting to cave in on the rapist Hexen. Huh? She's starting to crumble on him, I heard. I can't wait to see those confirmation hearings. Oh, yeah, by the way, nice hypocrisy on old Paisan Luigi, and then you defend Daniel Penny, though, right? Right?
Well, how is that similar? One guy's a murderer and the other guy's a hero.
And the other guy's a murderer. A hero to who? He ain't no hero to that guy's family. That's for one thing, because they're going to file a lawsuit against him for wrongful death.
Jerome, I want to remind you that there are a lot of people listening right now, and you're embarrassing yourself. All right? One guy took a gun with a silencer, a gun he made illegally and whatnot, and shot somebody in the back of the head. And another guy, with the help of other passengers, subdued a guy to the ground who said he was going to kill people on that train. In no way are those similar. Daniel Penny didn't run away from anybody. This guy's running away. He's on his way to Canada.
Yeah, right. Well, let's see him testify during that wrongful death trial. Let's see how, so he can hide behind his lawyers then. Okay?
Who's wrongful death?
The guy
Jordan
that
Neely's?
murdered Daniel Penny, who murdered that guy in New York.
Well, it's not murder if it's not premeditated. I don't think he was trying to kill the guy. And they charged him with everything that they could, and it didn't work. So it's not going to happen. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But thank you, Jerome. I appreciate it. And Joni Ernst, I think she's going to shock you. I think she's going to vote for my guy. Anyway, let us continue. I want to go to Ziggy in Marseille, Illinois. Or is that Marseilles? Marseilles.
Illinois.
Yeah, you could tell. I've only been to Chicago.
Yeah, we call it Martucky.
Martucky. All right. Well, WLS is in the building. Ziggy, go for it, brother.
I got to tell you something. I own an insurance company. Okay, let's just say that.
Well, I need a deal.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm going to tell you the story. I own an insurance company. Now, everybody's got to pay me a check to cover their car, which I don't own an insurance company, but somebody does. So every day of the month, every day of the year, this big fat guy is sitting there collecting money, checks. When they have an accident, hey, I'm a body man for almost 50 years. I'm 66 years old. I've seen it. So now, do I feed my kids or do I pay my insurance and risk getting a ticket? I think we have too much government involved in our lives. If I could convince everybody right now that's listening, quit paying your insurance. They can't put us all in jail. What are they going to do? Okay? License plates. Why do I need a plate? Stickers in Chicago. Why do I need a sticker?
Income taxes. You name it, you can boycott all of the law. I don't think it's possible. The idea that you're floating is one I hear a lot, Ziggy, and it's that if we all do it, the problem is, how do you get we all to do anything? You can't get us all to vote for the same person. You can't get us all to root for the same team. You can't get us all to do anything. So just imagine getting people to say, hey, look, I know you don't like your auto insurance. I don't like it either. But guess what? Let's all stop paying it. Nobody's going to do it. You know why? Because everybody's like me. I've got two little girls on the road. They're all right. They're 19 and 23 now. But God forbid they get into something and they're not covered. I don't want that to happen, right? I want my children to be protected, and I think most parents do. And for that reason, I don't think we're ever going to, stop paying insurance. Now, would I move to New Hampshire where you can waive insurance and just pay into the state fund, which I think is $1,000 per year or $500 per year? Yeah, I would do that. I think I would. Because you can save a lot of money, especially when you're in my part of the world where some people are paying $12,000 and $13,000 a year just for auto insurance on 2 or 3 cars. That's a lot of money, and it's unfair. So I think that's where we are. If we could talk people into everybody doing it, man, we'd have a whole different world, Ziggy. We really would. But I appreciate it, and Godspeed to you for trying. Shout out to everybody in Mercilles, Illinois, WLS. Let us continue. Let's go further south to Tampa, Florida. Eduardo, listening online, richvaldez.com. Go for it.
Hey, Rich, I wanted to talk a little bit about Syria. I was watching the German English news, and they were talking about how Germany is interested in sending Syrians settled in Germany back to Syria. So watch out for something like that. And I see that Israel has a buffer zone, and they're probably going to have a buffer zone in Iraq. And, we're going to have to see how this is going to turn out, because I am so glad that we have the Trump administration coming in, because if any of these characters try and make it in through the border and try and do some kind of, heaven forbid, bad things, at least we got some good people working on our side.
Yeah, stronger border.
Mr. Holman.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think our border security is taken care of. The only issue is, I think those who want to do us harm, they have already arrived, and they're here. Maybe they're not doing us the harm yet, but they're here. And we've had a number of guests on this program where they're just talking about, it's only a matter of time before they decide to say, hey, we're here. I hope that doesn't ever happen, but can't live naively either and think that it never will happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thanks for the call.
Okay, Rich,
brother.
I'll let you to get on to more calls. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Eduardo. Nice to hear from you. Shout out to Tampa, Florida. Love Florida, by the way. And we continue. Where are we going? We're going to go to the break. I'm being told in my ear. I get caught up. I love doing the calls. We're coming right back. It'll be the speed round when we come back. 2 rounds of the speed round with probably about 8 or 9 calls to go. I'm trying to get to everybody, so keep it short. Keep it to like a sentence or so to make your point effectively, and we will continue our discussion. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, let's go to Archie, Ventura, California, KVTA. Archie, go right ahead.
Kudos, Rich. I was listening this morning to KVTA, and the replacement for the morning guy that was injured did a deep dive on the young man that shot the Thompson.
Oh,
he
Mangione.
found out some interesting things. Apparently, he's got 9 siblings, one of 10, and he's, of course, wealthy, and all of that was true. But he also had some kind of a sports injury that caused him to be impotent. His back has an injury known as spondylolisthesis. It's known as slipping vertebrae, and the doctors fused that vertebrae in place, and he remained impotent. And he blamed the insurance companies apparently for not letting them for paying for a redo on that. Well, once it's bolted down and bracketed down and everything, there's no way they can undo it. The transverse processes that allowed it to slip, and it's got to slip over a third of its width on the L5. It's got to slip over a third of its width on the sacral vertebrae, and it pinches the nerves. And once those transverse processes that are supposed to prevent
this
that
sounds like a
are
science class, Archie, but I get the point. This guy's mad because of something that happened with it, and that's always what I suspected. I would have thought it was more like he wanted to become a woman and they didn't allow it or they didn't pay for it. But either way, I think you just because, I understand the story you're telling, it gives him a little bit even more motive, right? It's like, oh, but why kill the CEO? Why not go after the doctor who did it? Why? And I'm not saying he should. I'm just wondering out loud, like, why would we go after, because the doctor made you impotent, you now want to kill the CEO of the insurance company who says we're not going to do a do-over? To me, it just it sounds like such a stretch for me. And either way, there's never a situation, I don't think, where we go and we kill the CEO of any company because we don't like the outcome of something. Unless they're killing you first, right? If they're killing you, killing your family, it's a different story. And even then, right, if it's denying a claim or something like that, that's not really killing your family either. But I could see how one would view it that way. Anyway, Archie, thank you for your call, brother, and thank you for listening to the program. I appreciate it. Shout out to Ventura, California. That's the L.A. market, KVTA in the building. And we continue. We're going to go down to Atlanta, Georgia, check in with Todd. Todd, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Rich. I've heard the AOC and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, trial lawyers on TV demonize, insurance companies. And so I'm not surprised that this guy, shot him in the back. But if, they're so smart, why don't they come up with a nonprofit insurance company? Why didn't that guy just, try to fix the system instead of victimizing somebody else? And the left always seems to rationalize murder, whether it's trying to kill Trump or killing millions of kids in abortion clinics or killing this guy. They always rationalize it.
I think you're right. Your second point there is right. The left is always trying to rationalize murder, and they're always trying to normalize violence. They really are, as if it's okay. It's okay if it's because it's against Trump. It's okay. It's because it's against this insurance capitalist pig, whatever and whatnot. This is what the left does. They dehumanize. With respect to nonprofit insurance, if somebody wants to do that, they should try. But it's the same reason I don't do nonprofit radio, right? Everybody needs to make a living doing something, and that's what they do. They sell insurance. My ex-wife was an insurance person. And it's a complicated thing. I mean, simple premise, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. So I don't begrudge anyone for trying to make a living. I could make this argument about cars. Oh, my daughter needs, X, Y, and Z fixed on her car. And, if you really wanted to help my daughter, you would do it for free. To me, it's a lousy argument because it's just unfair. You can't ask people to give of themselves. People who want to volunteer, they do. They volunteer. Everybody else, they want to get paid for their service. And I get that. I'm not mad at it at all. And I don't want the government involved. But Todd, thank you for your call, brother. I appreciate it. Shout out to you and everybody in WGKA country. Let us continue. I want to go to Nancy in Ottumwa, Iowa, listening on KBiz, KBIZ. Go for it, Nancy.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's sad that this man killed this man that worked through United Health.
Yeah.
I want to send my condolences to his family. And the thing is, I've been on United Health, and I get good coverage. They're good people that work through there. That's all I have to say about it.
Beautiful, and I love hearing that. I'm glad that that's the case. I would hate it if you said, "Oh, they're terrible people." We should get them to, that's not what we want to do in life. And if there is an issue with a bad company, then don't use that company. Right? Go to a better company. But I appreciate that, Nancy. Thank you, and shout out to everybody in Ottumwa, Iowa, KBIZ. And folks, I'm going to pause right here. We're coming right back. We've got calls from Kentucky, San Francisco, South Carolina, Canada, Akron, Ohio, Zanesville, Ohio. I'm going to try to get to all of you in the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it's the speed round, and we got the Christmas music going. Let us go to, where did I leave off here? Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, Derek in Akron, Ohio, on WNIR says that he is innocent until proven guilty, the alleged shooter. That's true. Tony in Montreal, Canada, is a lawyer and is an expert in crime. I don't know if we're going to have time to get to all of your expertise, but hang in there. Larry is where I left off. Larry, go for it. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN.
Yeah, what stood out to me with this Luigi guy, he left Monopoly money in his backpack. He was sending a message because, the insurance industry, it's like a monopoly, They squeeze out the competition. You got a teenage kid gets a license, you live in a certain area, they jack up your insurance
automatically
rate.
goes up. It's amazing what they do. Yeah, you're 100% right, Larry. Yeah, I don't know what the deal was with that. He also had real money with him. I don't know, honestly. I can't wait to find out. Hopefully we get to find out. I'm following this like I follow those documentaries on the true crime shows. Larry in Myrtle Beach, WRNN. Thank you, brother. Let us go to Brad, Bowling Green, Kentucky, WKCT. Quickly, speed round.
Yeah, is this Rich Hairless?
Rich Hairless, that's me. Yes, it is.
Yeah, with an S. Hey, buddy. I'm just thinking, they got this guy, right? They got all the goods on him and all this and that. But by God, if you think about it, the government can do whatever they want. They can make stuff up and plant whatever they want.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think it looks like the guy.
But you know what? It may not look like the guy. But what I will say is he's not saying it's not him. He threw himself against the wall and he made a little protest, but he wasn't saying it's not me, I'm not guilty. He just seems like he's upset that he got caught. Anyway, David in San Francisco, I'm sorry I didn't get to you. Our favorite dissenter thinks there should be bigger consequences for Mangione. I agree with that. Tony in Montreal, shout out to you. Derek in Akron. Paul in Zanesville, sorry, brother. The Trump dance is the best. Folks, hasta la próxima. I am Rich Valdez. Until next time, America, take care, good night, and God bless you, America.